You've got to train heavy to get big, bro. So we know already this isn't true. We know that you can train heavy, moderate, or even light. As long as it's close to failure, this will stimulate muscle growth. But what is the reason behind this? The one theory is the recruitment of muscle. So you recruit with a heavy load, fast twitch fibers first. They fatigue quite quickly because of the nature of them, and then the slow twitch have to take over, but obviously they're going to struggle with the load, so they fatigue very fast, and the entire muscle, both fast and slow twitch fibers, have fatigued, and therefore stimulating both fiber types. And likewise, if you go the other end of the spectrum, if you train light, then at first the slow twitch are just sitting around going, we don't even need to work, this load is too easy. So the slow twitch are doing all the work until they fatigue, which takes a lot of repetitions. And then of course they can't contract. So you then have to bring in the fast twitch, and the fast twitch are obviously doing more proportional work, which means the weight is proportionally heavier without the slow twitch taking any load, and then they become failed, and you've failed all fiber types. Hence then you stimulate both fiber types. So as I'm discussing here, there's a lot talking about fiber types. Is there therefore a way of trying to maybe target training a certain style based on the fiber type orientation of a muscle? So if you have a muscle that has a greater proportion of fast twitch fibers, does that mean there's a reason to train more heavier load, and vice versa on the other end of the spectrum? And there was some research done on this to see if this was actually the case. So they did a study on previously untrained men, and they were looking at calf training. And the reason they chose calf training is based on the two main calf muscles, which are quite different in their orientation of fibers. So you've got slow twitch dominant muscle, which is the soleus, which is the deeper calf muscle. And then you've got your gastrocnemius, which actually has a bit of both, but obviously is more of a power muscle and more of a kind of general explosive type muscle. So they were therefore looking to see if there was a difference in training heavy or therefore light, or at least moderate, on which was more beneficial per muscle based on its fiber type orientation. Now we know because of active insufficiency that a calf raise done with a bent knee emphasizes more bias towards the soleus than the gastroc, and therefore they did a seated calf raise to try and isolate or bias that muscle. And then the other muscle, the gastroc, is more heavily dominated within a standing calf raise. So that were the two exercises that they chose to work each muscle individually. So they did 8 weeks of training, and they did it twice a week. One leg they trained with light loads, which was a 25 repetition max, and the other leg they trained with moderate loads, which was an 8 repetition max. They did 4 sets to failure with a 90-second rest between sets and 3 minutes rest between exercises. They used a B-mode ultrasound scanner to determine muscle thickness. So what did they find? Well, they found statistically no difference between the groups, the training styles. So it didn't matter if it was a fast twitch dominant or a slow twitch dominant, they grew well on both forms of training. So therefore fast twitch heavy, fast twitch light, slow twitch heavy, slow twitch light grew very much in the same statistically similar way. There was a slight difference though. There was marginally more, but not clinically significantly found, greater growth with both muscle fiber types, so therefore the gastroc and the soleus grew better slightly with light loads over heavier loads. Now this could be down to the basis of that, the calf in general is still used to doing a lot of work, and maybe that's why. It could be that the gastroc has still got slow twitch in there as well. It's hard to say. Obviously the other side is that, is there a real good way of truly getting gastroc working or soleus working? Well, no, there isn't. They're both still working within this context, and I've done other videos as well looking at seated calf raises, training like dominating quite well on the medial gastroc head. So it's not a cut and dry scenario, this kind of research paper. But it shows you though that really it probably highlights that there isn't a lot of difference. As long as you train close to failure, whether it's light or heavy, probably doesn't matter about the fiber types. The fiber types are relevant in why it's working, but they're not relevant in training differently per fiber type orientation, or at least this doesn't conclude that kind of evidence. So anyway, interesting piece of research, just a curious way of looking at way of training based on muscle building. And it doesn't matter how you train, heavy, light, moderate, it just looks like train hard, train close to failure. Not all the time, but certainly that's the best way to stimulate muscle growth, muscle protein synthesis, and getting to failure is that best way. So anyway, that's it for this video, and I'll see you next time.